Welcome to The Pulse, brought to you by United Regional Healthcare System. I'm Henry Florsham, President and CEO of the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce. We are streaming live today on Facebook and YouTube, and will be rebroadcast on KJTL Texoma's Fox 18 on Sunday. My guests today, we're here to talk about entrepreneurship. We have Misti and Shannon Kelton from Monarch Motor Speedway, and Scott Poenitzsch with Horseshoe, Cellars, Vineyard, and Winery. Misti, Shannon, Scott, thanks for joining me today. First question, we'll start with Misti and Shannon, and then we'll go to Scott. Give us your elevator pitch, 30 seconds. Who is Monarch Motor Speedway?
We have, it's actually outdoor dirt track, which we, family entertainment. We've got drivers that come from all over the country to attend the events, as well as families that we've got that drive in from 2 or 3 hours away, as well as the local Wichita Falls community.
All right, Scott, tell us about Horseshoe Bend.
Good, thank you, Henry, and welcome everybody to The Pulse. I'm Scott Poenitzsch, owner of Horseshoe Bend Winery. We are a destination winery located just on the outskirts of Wichita Falls. We have over 20 wines in our portfolio. Entertainment for private parties, weddings, murder mystery dinners, magic shows, comedy shows. We're basically in the entertainment business and provide you with a good glass of wine. So thank you for joining us today.
All right, Misti and Shannon first. You guys are not from Wichita Falls. What made you want to acquire the Speedway?
Well, as we were looking at the Speedway and then, driving the surrounding Wichita Falls, Burkmanette, and Iowa Park, the areas around, you've got the small town feel, which we both grew up in that atmosphere. Of course, living in close to Dallas area now. Like I said, he gets to drive in with the no traffic, the friendly smiles that you see there. That's definitely basically brought us back to growing up in our hometown where we originally were from.
Okay, now Scott, your background's manufacturing. Talk to me about the process to get you into the wine business.
So, at the end of the day, I've managed quite a bit of large corporations making things from compressors to heat exchangers to plastic pallets. I view this business as very similar. It's a manufacturing business that happens to make wine. So you have to follow all the steps of process control, supply chain management, quality assurance, and quality control as if you would be making any other type of a product. So I found the transition to that piece of it very easily. It is on the sales and advertising side that I'm probably a little bit more rusty than I would like to be.
Scott, talk to me about the last 2.5, 3 months or so. How did the pandemic affect you? And what's been the biggest challenge getting through?
So since we're in the food industry and we rely on our customers through the tasting of direct to consumer sales, it impacted our revenue significantly. Our direct is anywhere from 60 to monthly revenue, and when we had to close our tasting room, that put a big dent into all the parties, the weddings, murder mystery dinners, all those events we had to cancel, which are part of our mainstream. What it did for us is we pushed us into an area that we were considering doing, but not as early as we did, and that was online or curbside delivery, and then also delivery services. So that is something that was not on our radar screen before COVID-19, but being entrepreneurs, you got to survive. So we brought our resources to bear and implemented both or all three of those things beyond our wildest imaginations. So they've been pretty good for us. Today we're at a 25% occupancy inside, which means we really still can't get back to our dinners yet. We're hoping that continue to be lifted. But we've been starting to get a little busy on the outside where people are trying to get away from the shelter in place and just try to enjoy some of the North Texas weather.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, it's interesting that a situation like this makes you pick up something you've been thinking about. For us, it's the idea of having video conference meetings. We know how easy and convenient that would be, but we never forced ourselves to do it because we didn't have to. And now a lot of our boards and committees are meeting that way, and it works. It's not too difficult. Shannon and Misti, talk to us about the first couple of months during this pandemic and how it affected you guys.
With us, it's from going from working 6 to 7 days a week to basically, because our main business in Dallas with auto delivery was shut down also. So we went from, like I said, working around the clock to basically shut down and wondering, when this was going to lift and what we would be able to do, which gave us a little bit of time as far as planning for, especially with the racetrack being taking on our second year, and doing some upgrades and like I said, just planning for the season and trying to figure out which way to go as far as, like I said, with the shelter in place. And then when we did get to open, being at 25% occupancy, which we're blessed with the facility being as large as it is, that even at 25%, we can still have, close to 1,000 people, which would still be a crowd. And just, like I said, it actually, I guess, renewed the ownership of the business again, definitely, because being in our second year, because it was like we were all ready to go, and about the time it was time for the gates to open, we were shut down. So it definitely gave us a new drive again for this year.
Tell us what that first night back open was like.
It was more than we expected, for sure. We had, like I said, we were expecting about 30 or so sprint cars that were going to be coming in, mainly probably from the Texas and Oklahoma area. And with Texas, like I said, being blessed of opening up one of the first days to kind of start opening back up, we wound up having, just in the sprint cars, there were 60 cars that checked in the first night. And we had drivers from Colorado, Minnesota, Nebraska, just a variety of racers from all over. And then actually even we had fans traveling in from Houston and San Antonio, Arkansas, Oklahoma. A few came from Kansas. So it was really blessed, and we, like I said, got to show off our venue to some people, fans and drivers that may not normally have gotten to see that.
That's awesome. That's great you were able to make those accommodations. Scott, tell us, what are you most proud of over the last 3 months?
I would have to say my two daughters. My daughter, Gabrielle, who's our general manager here, really kept the business going. She came up with a lot of the rules and regulations and procedures that we're following as we're starting to open up. She kept it going pretty strong, had a real good spirit. My other daughter, Adriana, she lives up in St. Louis, and she does all of our social media and all of our ad and marketing campaigns. So we just felt it was very important that we kept in front of our customer base so that when the COVID-19 shelter-in-place lifted, people still remembered who. I would say both of my daughters, especially Gabrielle.
Scott, is there anything you would do differently looking back from the start of the pandemic?
I'd say no. I think we were forced to step back and engage our supply base and kind of explain what our situation was. I have to admit, our suppliers of corks and bottles and some other cost of goods were really receptive to extending payment terms of that nature. So that helped the immediate cash flow situation. And then I got to give a shout out to our commercial lender, who is Pilgrim Bank, and they've worked with us very, very well on our repayment schedule, as well as they got us aligned with the PPP program, as well as the Economic Disaster Loan Program. So we reached out into our business partners, so to speak, and we're really pleased about how they helped us through this.
Good. Shannon and Misti, what about you guys? Anything you would do differently?
I don't think so that I can think of. Like I said, from our aspect, anything from you, Misti?
I don't think so. I mean, we kind of just did what we knew we had to do when we were able to come back. So I don't think we would have done anything different.
Okay. Hey, that's amazing. I can think of 50 things I would do. All right. We asked this question of all of our guests. Raise your hand if you've watched The Tiger King. All right. Shannon and Misti, tell me about it. What's your take?
Well, we were introduced actually because our youngest son is a fireman. And so I guess during the shelter in place, he's at the station one day and calls and it says, "Oh, you've got to watch this show." We sit down and we're slow at the station. We watch the whole deal from start to finish. And he actually mentioned, said in the very last episode, the track is in it. You've got to check it out. So like I said, I hadn't heard of the Tiger King, didn't know anything about it. And so, like I said, so Misti and I, we get ready to turn on the TV and start getting on Netflix and look up Tiger King. And the first, I start reading the title, talking about the zoo and big cats. And I'm like, okay, you sure you wrote down Tiger King? Sure you got the right documentary we're supposed to watch? Because I don't see where the racetrack fits in with this. And of course, the first 4 or 5 minutes, once you turn it on, it's got John Rinke. They started interviewing him, and then it automatically clicked. Okay, we're going to be tied into this somehow. So it's Rinke is actually he's a driver. Owns a couple of cars that race at the track, and so that was where, of course, I had to wait through and get to the final episode. And of course, at the very end, it does show they're at the track, and it shows Rinke and a couple of cars pulling off, and that's. But it was definitely not what I was expecting.
Other than not watching that show, Shannon, what's one piece of advice you would give to the 18-year-old Shannon?
Not watching. Yeah, that was. If we could start over again, I guess stay away from the zoos. Also,
Misti, what about you? 18-year-old Misti, what advice would you give her?
Just keep working hard. Just keep dreaming big, and just put your mind to it. You can do it.
Scott, message for the 18-year-old Scott.
Never stop learning.
Yeah, that's a good one. For those of you who just joined us, you're watching The Pulse, brought to you by United Regional Healthcare System. My guests today are Misti and Shannon Kelton from Monarch Motor Speedway and Scott Poenitzsch with Horseshoe Cellars, Vineyard, and Winery. All right, Scott, how long did you research the wine business before you made the purchase of this winery?
Well, I had been making wine 5 gallons at a time for some period of time, so I basically understood the of how to create wine. But I would say it took probably about 1.5 years to kind of reach out into the winemaking industry. I got a chance to talk with the owners, Patrick and Julia of Blue Ostrich, James down at OG Cellars, and then Amy and Howard over at Arche, to kind of get a better understanding of what it's like to be a winemaker, what it's like to be an entrepreneur in this marketplace. And I have to tell you, every time we talked to them, we were even more committed to doing something either in the wine business or maybe even the distillery business. So we worked very close with people over by the SBA, building out our business plan, which is essential to have because, day to day you get pulled in a million different directions, but you still need that strategic plan so you can see the long range vision. And we wanted to buy something, and we're very blessed and pleased that we found something in Wichita Falls that allowed us to stay here in Texas. So we're pretty pleased about that.
Yeah, that's great. I remember talking to you during that process, and we didn't want to lose you. We knew you were looking at multiple wineries, and we were glad you landed here. Shannon and Misti, how about you guys? How long did you look at the racetrack before you decided to pull the trigger?
Probably it was about a 6 month. We were looking at doing some promoting and getting into that side of the racing industry. And like I said, with the racetrack, you kind of pick and choose. It's because they're scattered usually every couple of 100 miles, and then you're looking at the location, like Wichita Falls, kind of like I mentioned before. You're looking at the location of where it's at, the community around it, and if that's something that you think you can go in and improve on and attract those residents and for an entertainment value for there. So it was about 6 months that we actually looked at the track, but it was more of looking at the community and what there was to do there, and then made sure that we would be a good fit for that.
Speaking of entertainment, Shannon, you guys have something big coming up on June 12th, right?
Yes, sir. We've got some people, maybe an unknown driver they may not have heard of, Tony Stewart, will actually be coming in, be a 410 sprint car race. and they'll be bringing in drivers from all over the country. We've got Aaron Russell and a few others that are basically a lot of guys that raced with the World of Outlaws up until the last couple of years, and they have kind of transitioned over to the All-Star Sprint Series, which Tony Stewart actually owns, but he will actually be there in person and competing. That would be on June the 12th.
So what's the experience like coming to a race or series of races at the track with social distancing requirements in place? Walk me through the experience for one of your visitors.
They would come in, like I said, as they first come in the gate. We've got, of course, hand sanitizers. As they come in, we offer some do take, some do not, some of them bring their own. Of course, we try to space them out as they come in and get their tickets. And then once they arrive at the event, we've got the bleachers marked off basically every other row. And then we've got them, of course, ask them to space out if you come in with a family, that you can sit with your family. Try not to gather, because that's especially with the outdoor venue like we have. That's, it's kind of a meeting place for a lot of people at each event. And we've kind of tried to discourage that where they're not in groups there. We've got, as far as on the concessions, one good thing that did come out of this with the COVID-19, which actually has been a plus for us. We've got a text to order. We've got, where they text their order in instead of actually waiting in line at the concession stand. They can text their order, and then they'll get a text back when it's ready to go down and pick up. That way, which, they may not miss a race or spending 5 minutes in a line at the concession stand. So that's definitely been a plus. And then just, of course, sanitizing everything, as far as restrooms and common areas around the venue.
Scott, what about you? Tell us what it's like. Somebody wants to come out to Horseshoe Bend Cellars and have a glass of wine. What's their experience like?
Sure. So very similar to the racetrack, we've got the hand sanitizers, and we've increased our frequency of going around and cleaning like doorknobs and hard surfaces and things like that. All along we've been a FDA controlled facility, so it's just kind of a normal course for us to keep everything clean and sanitized. But we notched it up quite more during this COVID-19. Coming into the tasting room, again, we've got the bar marked off to keep distances between individuals at the bar. We do not allow seating at the bar. And we're only allowed 25% in the tasting room and the balcony, or I should say the banquet area upstairs. Outside, we don't have a capacity constraint, but we do have to watch the social distancing of the 6 feet, and then try to keep the groups a little bit smaller. So we are encouraging people to come out and sit in some of our remote areas by the picnic tables, which are away from the building, some of our seating pod areas. And in some cases, we've got quite a few RVers showing up here that just kind of camp overnight on our property. And they come in, buy their bottle of wine or their cheese board to go, and they enjoy their time at their RV. So, we're managing through this, but again, we cannot wait till we continue to get bigger and start getting back to our events.
Scott, you're very involved in the community, serving on multiple boards and doing volunteer work for lots of different organizations, including a term as the chairman, currently as the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. Talk to us about that experience. What's it been like for you?
I'm not from Wichita. It's not from Wichita Falls. We relocated here for a job opportunity that I was a president of a company for about 5 or 6 years. We decided to stay here. We like this community. I think Misti and Shannon had mentioned it's very friendly, it's very open. You can get from one side of the town to the other side of the town. So having all of that said and done, I really enjoy giving back to the community, and Wichita Falls continuously growing through business, entrepreneurship, population. I just like giving back. So you're right. I've sat on a number of boards. I presently sit on a local bank board. I am the Chamber's chairman of the board, and I just rolled off of the ballet board as well too. So I just to the community.
Thank you, Scott. Shannon and Misti, you bought a business in Wichita Falls, not from here. You got it up and running, and you guys joined the Chamber of Commerce at our Chairman's Council level, which is our highest level of investment. Talk to our audience about why you did that and what your experience has been working with the chamber?
I would say the chamber's been great. That's definitely, I think they've helped build our brand there in the Falls area, especially with the COVID-19 situation. I know, Henry, you probably was tired of taking my calls from that, but I greatly appreciate that. With any questions that we had to get answered, that was great, definitely during that situation. And I think it really, with and joining with the chamber, you're getting to see some of the things that the normal public may not get to see, especially like with the level there, that some things that are happening in Wichita Falls that actually are exciting to us. And actually you get more plugged in to the community that way, as far as just being, a normal resident. That's what I would say. But definitely the help has been tremendous. That's what I would recommend anybody that's, even if you're not a business owner there, to be, to join the chamber and get plugged in to the city there.
What would you guys tell me about your number one personality trait that helps you be successful in your line of work?
Well,
Shannon, let's go to you first.
I would say I'm a huge people person. So I'm very, when I go somewhere, I want to be treated, I want to treat people the way that I want to be treated. So that's really been one of my biggest things, is just, I'm always at the front gate, and I know I've made so many friends there in Wichita Falls, just, through the racing community, and it is a tight-knit community. So I would say definitely, just being there and being that face and showing them, this is the owner, but yet, they're a person just like me. They enjoy things just like me. So I would say definitely that's been a great benefit to us, especially not being from the area. So,
Shannon, what about you?
I would say work ethic, and then kind of with a sales background, is not taking no for an answer. That's especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to get more no's than you ever will yes, and commitment. So that's just, you've got to put forth the work ethic and not take a no for an answer. Like I said, one door closes, you got to keep knocking, and eventually the right one will open.
Sure. Scott?
Well, I would say, two things. We both touched on it. One would be just passion for what you do, but also have an approachable demeanor. One of the things I religiously did, there was a period of time I ran a number of manufacturing plants worldwide. And every time I arrived there, I would walk through the entire plant saying hi to everybody. And then as I was leaving, a couple of days later, I'd walk through and say goodbye to everybody, just so that they knew that I was there. They could talk to me, they could approach me. So I really, really enjoy collaborative management and just being available for people to talk. The other side is a character flaw, and I have no patience. I'll just tell you that right up front. I'm kind of a yesterday sort of guy. So let's get going on it, and why wasn't it done yesterday?
Which is one thing when you're running your own business, but it's another when you're the chair of an organization like the chamber that's got all these big ambitious initiatives, right? We can't get them all done today. Scott, how has your personal life changed since the pandemic started?
Personal life, again, one of the things that, we rely back very heavily on family. So we've been talking to our kids. The only child that lives in Wichita Falls with us is Gabrielle. Our daughter, Anna, just graduated as Doctor of Pharmacy up in Southern Illinois University, and we could not go to the ceremony. They had a virtual ceremony. So we're hoping to see her again later on, and when they repeat it, hopefully late summer, early fall. Our other daughter is a doctor up in Maine. We haven't seen her because it's very airline flights. And then we have a son that's up in Milwaukee with a couple of grandkids. So it's very difficult to see the children, but we do try to make up through FaceTime, some Zoom meetings together, a lot of phone calls, things of that nature. So that's kind of how it's gone for us. I would say also that our work days probably gotten a little bit longer because we're taking this opportunity while we're shuttered a little bit to get the things like preventative maintenance on some of our large pieces of equipment. We spend an awful lot of time developing some new varietals of wines So we're about ready to release 2 or 3 of those. And then I think Shannon and Misti said planning. We've got an announcement we're going to make next month that we're really looking forward to expanding our business in a separate location.
You want to announce it here now live?
Well, it'll be called Lobby 39, and we're very pleased to partner with a local business to get our winery presence in a downtown location. And that's all I'm going to say.
I'll put them on the spot. You didn't have to do that. Okay, great. we can't wait to hear more. Shannon and Misti, how has COVID-19 affected y'all's personal life?
I would say probably just the slowdown. That's because, like I said, we're both go-getters and constantly, like I said, with running a couple of different businesses, we're both, we've actually been able to spend more time together because usually I would be in Wichita Falls, 4 or 5 days a week after we purchased the track. So we've actually, I guess, more time bonding. My honey-do list grew about 10 times from what it normally was because she had more time to go through and make that. But that's with family, like I said, like Scott mentioned, we've been blessed. Our kids are both still here close, so that's we definitely more bonding time. We're a close-knit family, so but really, I guess for us, just adjusting to the slowdown of not going 90 to nothing, 7 days a week.
So in a couple of minutes, we're going to wrap up the first part of the show for the TV broadcast, but for the live stream audience, just stick around and we'll keep going. So, Misti, you're a nurse by trade, right?
Yes.
So how has that changed? And how have you utilized those skills in this new business?
Well, I left the private practice that I worked in for 15 years, 4.5 years ago, just to come on full time to help with our auto delivery business here. And then obviously Shannon decided to buy the track. And so now that's my second job. So, I mean, really, I kind of really didn't do anything during the COVID. I didn't feel like that was something that I wanted to do. Obviously, I could have, but, just that exposure, bringing that exposure back, to my family, it's hard enough, with our son being a first responder. So he's a fireman and a EMT. So, just this, the possibilities that, that could happen. But I just decided that, I had enough on my plate. I didn't need to add anything else. So
Sure. Do you guys have a mentor in the racing industry?
I would say as far as one of the best promoters that, of course, I grew up going, it was Devil's Bowl Speedway in Mesquite, Laney Edwards. That was if you look at, I'd say, a mentor in that area in the promotion side would be him. He passed a couple of years ago, but that's still one of the top facilities. And as far as the way a race program is ran, if anyone has been to different tracks around the country and stuff, you'll go and 3 or 4 hours is more than enough time to spend there. And like I said, that's our goal, is to get someone in and out in about 3 hours or so. And you go to some tracks and you're there till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and that takes the fun out for everyone. So.
Okay, thanks to everybody for watching this TV broadcast of The Pulse, brought to you by United Regional. For the live stream crowd, stick around. We'll be right back. And to everyone watching on Fox, you can visit the Chamber's Facebook page to watch this show in its entirety. Thanks again to Texoma's Fox 18 for airing The Pulse, and to Misti, Shannon, and Scott for joining us. We'll see you next week. And we're back. That last question was about mentors. Scott, do you have a mentor in the wine business?
Well, I'd say no, not in the wine business, other than this business I am is a very collaborative business. So I don't hesitate to reach out to some of my colleagues in the business if I have an issue with a wine or an issue with the vineyard. And I got to tell you, this business is so foreign to me as far as being collaborative. Everybody helps everybody in this business by sharing information, sharing pieces of equipment. And when I first got into it, I came out of industrial products where if you were a competitor sole job was to leapfrog technology and take market share. So you were highly competitive. So it took me, I'd say, almost a year to trust. Why would you borrow me your piece of equipment? What's wrong with you, you know? So I had to get through that. But from a mentorship, I'd reach back a few years and it would be more business related. Up in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, named Dick Corcoran, and he taught me fiscal responsibility, budgeting for very large organizations, and then also expense management. So I'm very pleased to have worked for him for a number of years and groomed that skill. But then I also worked for the CEO directly at Gardner Denver, and his name was Ross Centani. And he taught me a amount of strategic planning, strategic execution, post-acquisition integration. He took that business from 175 million and just short of 8 years grew to 2.2 billion. And I was part of that. And that was probably the most fun I've ever had in business, acquiring businesses, innovators. He taught me so much about strategic planning and staying the course and not deviating. So those are the two gentlemen that I'm very pleased were in my professional life.
I've got a question from the audience for both of you. Scott, we'll stick with you first. We've got a brand new business owner in the audience named Vanessa. And Vanessa asks, I am wanting to know what was the most critical part of promoting your new business?
The critical part, well, the business that we purchased was actually called Wichita Falls Vineyard and Winery. And it was a business that was struggling. It was a couple in their late 60s, early 70s. So we acquired it. So it was a turnaround, and then we changed the name. So it was rebranding. So I would say both of those were very, very challenging. And in that first year of business, untold amount of people that would say to me, what, a winery in Wichita Falls? When did that happen? And literally the business had been here 10 years prior to us buying it. So the biggest challenge is getting the message out that yes, there is a winery here. And yes, we're about a 15-minute drive outside of downtown Wichita Falls.
Shannon and Misti, same question. What was the most critical part of promoting your new business?
I'm right on board with Scott. And actually, Scott and I had actually discussed this at the beginning of the season. Is we're in the same boat. We bought a track that had been there for years, been mismanaged. We come in and rebranded it. And then, like I said, as far as advertising and just getting the name and the brand that there is a racetrack there, there's, we've talked to people that's been in Wichita Falls all their life and didn't realize there was a racetrack there. And that's my kind of go-to is, well, it's next to the prison. I've even had a few that didn't know there was a prison there. So but it's just the rebranding. That's the biggest hurdle is, the amount of money you spend in advertising and, especially now there's so many different avenues with Facebook and social media is to take advantage of everything you can to get your brand out there.
Yeah, it's okay if people don't know that we have a prison, right? So use that as your landmark. Well, for the audience that was not on the show right when we started, let's go back to your elevator pitch. Shannon and Misti, tell us about Monarch Motor Speedway, what it is that you offer, and where you guys are located.
I'll let you go this time.
Okay, so we are Monarch Motor Speedway. We are a dirt racetrack on FM 369. As we said, right next to the prison. It is a lot of fun. It's good family entertainment. We have affordable pricing, and we have about 4 classes of cars that are there every week, and then we bring in a touring series. So come on out and check us out.
All right, Scott, same question. Tell us a little more about Horseshoe Bend Cellars and where you're located.
Sure. So I'm Scott Poenitzsch, and I represent Horseshoe Bend Cellars, Vineyard, and Winery. We are a destination winery located about 15 minutes due Wichita Falls, but before Iowa Park. We have our own vineyards, our crush equipment, fermentation tanks, aging room, and bottling line. We give tours to anybody who asks. We have over 20 wines in our portfolio. We're working on a couple of more. And over the course of a month, we'll do a number of different events, both private and public, weddings, engagement parties, murder mystery events, magic shows, and comedy. So we're in the entertainment business that happens to make wine.
I'm glad you mentioned tours. Scott, I've been through the tour at your place several times. Tell us what a visitor can expect to see on that tour.
Sure. So first off, I talk a little bit about our vineyards and what type of grape and why the vineyard is orientated the way it is. Also a little bit about the work that we have collaboratively with the Texas Department of Agriculture. They do a tremendous job helping the wine and grape industry. We also acquired juices and fruits from our supply chain. I mentioned we have over 20 wines, so I don't grow 20 different types of grapes here. We take them into the crush room and show them how we process the grapes from destemming to crushing. Talk a little bit about our fermentation process, what types of yeasts we add, what's going on in the tank, the chemical process that's occurring, converting the juice, the sugars in the juice to alcohol. Then we talk a little bit about our barrel aging, what oak we use, how long the wine is on barrel. And then finally, we take them into the bottling line, and we have a fully automated bottling line here that literally takes 2 people to run. We can fill a bottle every 20 seconds. And one person loads empty bottles and another person takes out full bottles and puts them in the carton. So it's a pretty fascinating process for an individual to see what happens behind the scenes to make that bottle.
I think we lost Henry.
I think we lost Henry. So just again, the tour takes probably about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the type of questions. So I go into pretty detail about the kind of yeasts that I use, the pressing operations, what type of pieces of equipment are being used, and what's going on inside. So, and everything that we have here is stainless steel, so it's got to be cleaned and sanitized on a regular basis. So lots going on, and I continue to look forward to continue to expand our vineyard operations. As a matter of fact, we're planting this Saturday on Facebook yesterday. Come join us for a planting party. And I needed about 18 volunteers, and we filled up in probably less than 3 hours, all 18 slots. So
That's awesome.
planting a vineyard is on people's bucket list.
Scott, we're waiting for Henry to get back. The new location that was let out of the bag, where exactly is that going to be downtown? You have a spot picked out yet? You want to share with us?
I do. It's going to be on Indiana. It's going to be on Indiana Avenue. That's all I can tell you right now. I think the first date we'll open up is going to be the Art Walk for July. It's kind of where we're targeting. It's something that we had in the works prior to the COVID. And honestly, we took all the marketing pictures. We did all the marketing materials. And then, of course, the door shut pretty hard on social type of business. So we just put everything on hold, kept talking, because they were in a similar business. They had to be shut down. But I got to know the owner of the business. He actually reached out to me, and through a series of really deep conversations, it looked like it was a good fit for both of us. So we always wanted to be downtown. I think downtown is an up-and-coming location in Wichita Falls. I'm impressed what I see over the last few years. And this location, I think, is in a good spot to be as time continues to move on. So the idea that we're going to have here is their business, but at the same time, we're going to allow it to be opening up a bistro. So we're looking forward to having maybe some lunch there, some of our cheese boards, and just having a nice spot in a pretty good location in Wichita Falls.
Awesome. They're going to offer any live music or anything?
Yeah. Here at the winery, yes. So we have live music about once or twice a month, and we go everything from a jazz band to a country and western singer that sounds awfully like Willie Nelson. We also, the Magic Nights here, we partnered with a magician, and it's a paired magic show with a 3-course dinner, and he is incredible when it comes to the art of illusion and that stuff. You'll walk out this door going, how did that happen, you know? We also have some craft parties that we do here, and we've got as we get back into be able to go 100%. We've been doing some pretty good brainstorming and coming up with some ideas to come out to the winery. And I've signed a contract with mid-October is a run. We have 75 acres here on our property, and the Dallas Wine Chicks want to have a wine run through our property. So they're going to be jogging through all over, stopping at stations, have some wine, and continue to run. So, okay with us. We'll host you.
Awesome. Well,
guys, we have learned something new. The Chambers network connection can go down, and the show still goes on. I thought y'all were going too, so it's good to know that y'all stuck around. I can just leave now, I guess. The show looked like it was running good without me.
That was pretty good. We were asking each other questions about business and some of the situations. So it was good at your back, but
Thank you for holding down the fort. We've got a question from the audience. Steve Havland, owner of Think of IT, has asked, what are you guys doing to recession-proof your business? Shannon and Misti, you guys want to jump in first?
Go ahead.
Recession-proof. I don't know if nothing at this point. That we can recession-proof it with. But like I said, we're with kind of tied in with the racers on one hand and the fans. So if they're going to be struck with, involved with a recession as we are, it's definitely going to hit all parties involved, especially with racing being an expensive sport. And then of course we've actually seen that with the COVID-19, where there's been, especially some of the pro teams and stuff, you've had sponsors and stuff pull out, and then trying to find out how to continue to have these events without fans, like with the NASCAR and some of the pro levels. And then it basically, that's one thing we strive to do, is to make it, a family affordable event for, where you can take a family of 4 out and not break the bank. And like I said, so that definitely, as a recession, I don't know if there's a way to recession-proof our business to where it didn't affect everybody.
Scott, what about you?
Well, we're in the same situation as a racetrack. We're a business to consumer sales. So if the consumer idles back their spending, there's not a whole lot we can do about it other than manage our costs. I talked a little bit earlier about fiscal responsibility and making sure you know where your costs are at. So if you have to start trimming them or adjusting, you know what bucket to go reaching into that is less critical or essential than another bucket. The other thing that today, as I speak, our distribution is through the winery and through a number of business partners in the Wichita Falls area. We're working very closely with a distributor, and we're going to start to reach out to the greater part of the state. So through that will help our business revenue going down the road. But I don't know how to do that, honestly.
Scott, is there anything interesting you're reading right now, or any podcasts you're listening to?
It's funny you ask that, because for some reason I'm getting into the 1920s Chicago, and it's probably born out of the last murder mystery we did. It was a speakeasy theme, so I'm getting really into that. So I'm reading a book right now called Scarface and the Untouchables. That's pretty cool. I'm from the Milwaukee area, but I'm familiar with a lot of the Chicago suburbs and downtown. So some of the things they talk about in the book I've been to. And then the podcast, the trip to see my daughter a couple of months back, she got me into podcasts that I can bring in through my iPhone. And I listened to a series called Kingpins which was majority of like Bugsy Siegel, Capone, Meyer Land, into all those. So yeah.
Shannon and Misti, what about you guys?
You're the big reader, Misti.
Shannon is not a reader. So currently I'm reading a book that our pastor's daughter, Landra Hughes, wrote called A Different Kind of Love Story. It's about her overcoming an eating disorder. So it's really good.
All right, you're watching The Pulse, brought to you by United Regional. My guests are Misti and Shannon Kelton from Monarch Motor Speedway and Scott Poenitzsch from Horseshoe Bend Cellars. What do you think would surprise people the most? Shannon and Misti, what would people be surprised at the most about what you've learned being in the racing business?
How much work goes into it. It's not just open the gates and everything's done. It's, you know, it's Shannon being gone 3 or 4 days a week, and, you know, just all the preparations for the event to make it successful and to make it a good family fun entertainment. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of little tiny details that people don't realize.
Scott, what about you?
So if you career, I've been president or CEO or vice president of a large organization. And one of those organizations was Gardner Denver, and you were expected to wear a suit and tie every day. So a lot of people have seen me in that attire and that stuff. Now they come here and I'm sitting on a big tractor in my blue jeans and dirty t-shirt or sweatshirt, and they're like, "What? You know how to drive a tractor?"
That's awesome. Scott, what is your favorite wine that you produce?
Oh, it depends on what I'm doing or eating. So if I'm just sitting around here with friends and family and customers, I'll enjoy our Life's a Peach, which is our peach Chardonnay. I really like that. If I'm having dinner, like a pasta Italian dish or maybe a grilled steak, I'll go to the semi-dry. Our Desperado Red is really good for complementing the steak or pasta. We can go a step further and marinate our hamburgers in it, so it brings out some really good spices in the meat.
And how about that you don't produce? What's your favorite winery out there?
My favorite that I don't, Blue Ostrich. Well, you know, everybody's got something unique and different. So if I go to OG Cellars, James has got a couple of good favorites, our ones. We kind of cut our teeth on the industry of Blue Ostrich. So that's kind of our go-to place, simply because we're most familiar with them in our.
Gotcha. So you've basically got this whole wine selection in your backyard because you live out there on the property. Are you a cook, Scott? Who cooks in the family? What's your favorite thing to cook and have with your wine?
Okay, so when Linda and I met so many years ago, she made it very clear to me that if it doesn't come out of a box, you're not going to get it, okay? So I tend to be the cook in the family and that stuff. So I do the grilling, we do burgers and stuff like that, traditional stuff on the grill. But, you know, I like making breakfast in the morning, big breakfast, eggs, all of that type of stuff. But I don't know, I got so many favorite things. You know, lasagna to steaks. I just like trying every little different thing and mixing it up a little bit. But no, I do like my time in the kitchen.
All right, Shannon and Misti, who's the cook in the family?
I would say until the shelter in place, I was pretty much. So that would be, like I said, we love grilling and, like I said, being outside. That's one thing with the shelter in place. I've tried more new things in the last 2 months than I have in all of our years. I've been married 25 years, but that's every day she had some type of recipe that, you know, she was whipping up that she had seen on Facebook or someone had sent her. So that's definitely, usually I'm the cook, like I said, outside grilling.
Shannon and Misti, let's stick with you. What's your favorite race at your track? What is your favorite division or type of racing to watch?
Mine is the modifieds and late models. That's my two favorite classes. I know a lot of the people like the sprint cars because they wreck and flip and tear things up. That's they do put on a great show, and that's usually a fan favorite with the sprints. Misti.
Well, I don't really watch because I'm always in the ticket booth, but and plus, our son races, and that makes me nervous, so I can't watch it. But I would probably say the modifieds and the late models. Probably, if I was going somewhere to watch, that's what I'd want to see.
Gotcha. For the audience that wasn't with us earlier, Shannon and Misti, tell us about your big event coming up on the 12th.
We have Tony Stewart will actually be participating along with the All-Star Circuit of Champions. It's a 410 sprint car series. They're actually based out of Pennsylvania area and mostly race kind of on the East Coast. And like I said, we've been lucky enough to get them to come through with most of the East Coast still being in the shelter in place. So we're very excited about that event.
Scott, I know we talked about events a little bit earlier that you host regularly at the winery. Do you have anything scheduled yet?
So we've penciled in a number of events towards the end of June, but we have not gone public with them. With anticipation to hear what the governor and ABC is going to allow us to do. At 25% capacity inside the tasting room, it's very difficult to play some of the games like the murder mystery, the magic and comedy shows. So if we get above the 50 to 75%, we'll start to turn them on. So I'm hoping June, but in all likelihood, it'll probably be July before we can get these events back again.
In Wichita Falls, we've been pretty fortunate that we haven't had a lot of COVID-19 cases. There's only been a couple of deaths in the area, and things are starting to open back up, although they're certainly not where we want them. What do you guys feel? And Scott, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Shannon and Misti. What do you feel is going to be your biggest challenge moving forward, trying to get your business back to where it was?
So from our standpoint, my daughter Gabrielle has got everything really up to speed as far as sanitizing, and we're doing the right thing for the department and TABC. I think the problem will come down to is the general public's varying degrees of reluctance to get back together again in somewhat close proximity to each other. I think that's going to be the greatest challenge, and I think we have to keep expressing to them that the flattening of the curve is there. We're getting very few positive. We're getting more negatives. So there's a lot of, I think that's going to be the biggest piece, is to get the assurances back from the general public to be willing to step into a closed environment.
Misti and Shannon, what about you guys?
I agree with Scott. Like I said, it will be just the public feeling safe when they come to the venue, and their safety is going to be number one priority. And like I said, that we're assure them that we're doing what we can on our end to ensure that. But it's just going to be, I guess, with the uncertainty with the media and everything that you've seen, it's just going to be, feeling that they're safe when they're coming out and getting back into public. That once the curve is flattened. Yeah.
At this point, even if the governor opened everything up 100%, if the people aren't willing to get out and go spend time and money at your business, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
Shannon and Misti first. Let's talk about being an entrepreneur. What do you like most about owning your own business?
I would say, the future, it's left up to us. You're not, it's anything that happens depends on you. You don't have someone that's basically over you that's controlling every aspect. Like Scott mentioned earlier, I'm not a suit and tie guy. I usually go to work in a polo or t-shirt and shorts. That's my favorite aspect, has probably been an entrepreneur. Like I said, there is, a lot of work that people don't see that goes in, especially behind the scenes. Everybody thinks, you're an entrepreneur, there's tons of money in the bank. You just sit back and go to the lake every day, and that's not the case either. So it's being, like I said, having control and being able to control the outcome of what happens. That's, I guess, mainly being an entrepreneur.
And what's the hardest thing?
There's never any time off.
Yeah, that would be it. A lot of it, would be just the work that goes in, and like I said, especially like with the track, you know, a lot of people think you know, when it comes to race time, you open the gates and everything is done, and that's definitely, a lot of people don't appreciate the work that goes into, not necessarily, I've been just with Scott with them making a bottle of wine. It's not just, you know, go to the tap and then you're ready to fill a bottle of wine. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes and work that people don't realize that goes into it.
Yeah. Scott, what about you? Favorite thing about owning your own business?
Well, in my previous life, I reported to different boards or CEOs and that stuff. Today, I have the freedom to try new things. If great, how can we build upon them? And I've got freedom to do that. Also freedom to make mistakes, and as long as it's not the same one time and time again. So I think that's what I enjoy the most, is the freedom to try things to continue to grow the business.
And what about the least?
Well, as an entrepreneur, Shannon, Misti mentioned, you wear many hats. You know, one day you're driving the fork truck, you're selling wine, you're delivering wine, you're making wine. And sometimes a lot of people are at you for the same that you're trying to get done here. So that can be somewhat undaunting sometimes when you're only 24 hours in a day and there's a line of people that want more than 24 hours of your time. So it's balance.
Were there any particular resources, Scott, that you used to help get your business off the ground? Yeah,
there was a couple. So first off, you know, talking to winemakers and wine owners, that to me was to get the insights running the business. And of course, I mentioned OG Cellars, I mentioned Arche and Blue Ostrich. Those were really good to test the market. The other one was the Small Business Association. They were phenomenal helping me with market research, demographics, the business plan, building it out. And then, you know, I got to tell you too, the biggest piece of the puzzle was and I interviewed a number of banks, local banks, and one shined through, Pilgrim Bank. And I got to tell you, a Charlotte brewer, and she understood the challenges of the business. She understood things that in a turnaround situation, it's not going to happen overnight, but as long as you stay the course and continue to deliver, this too shall come around. I didn't get that impression from a number of banks. So I'll just say you got to choose your lender wisely and work with them. And that's it. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Shannon and Misti, what resources did you guys use to get the racetrack off the ground?
From our end, it was mainly a few promoters and people that had been around the industry. Like I said, we didn't use a local bank. Like I said, we've got a small Texas bank that we use here in our area at the time, but mainly just getting the doors open. We, you know, relied on a few promoters and stuff that had been around the business for, you know, 30 or 40 years on that side.
All right, Shannon, Misti, last question for you before we wrap up. Why should somebody come out to Monarch Motor Speedway?
I would say for a great night of family fun entertainment, a place that you'll be treated like family. You know, we strive to make everyone feel like that they're part of something, and just being there in the environment and seeing something that you may have never seen before. It's a lot of fun. I would say it's something that you can do with your family that won't break the bank.
Shannon, anything to add?
That would be, like I said, just great, exciting auto racing. We've got, and especially since the shelter in place, we've noticed we've got quite a few new faces that are coming out to see us, and then you see them returning. So that would be, like I said, if you love, you know, the sounds of motor and fast cars, definitely come out and give us a try.
Scott, tell us why people should come out to Horseshoe Bend Cellars.
Well, first off, I'll start out that we're right next door, but we're a world away. When you come onto our property, you'll be kind of surprised that this is Wichita Falls. But also, more importantly, it'll be an education trip. We have a number of people that cross our threshold that say to me, we don't know nothing about wine. So we'll teach them about the aroma, the bouquet, the mouthfeel, the tears of a glass of wine. So they'll feel less inhibited about ordering their next bottle or next glass of wine, and just come on out, have fun, relax, and just make it an enjoyable trip. And like I said, we're right next door.
All right, that's it for today's edition of The Pulse, brought to you by United Regional Healthcare System. Thanks to Misti and Shannon Kelton from Monarch Motor Speedway, Scott Poenitzsch from Horseshoe Bend Cellars, and to our sponsors, United Regional. This show can be found on the Chamber's Facebook page at texomashomepage.com and on KJTL Texoma's Fox 18 each Sunday. Join me next Wednesday with my guest, State Senator Pat Fallon. I'll see you then.